Okay, so Wild Hog update. I'm going to share this responsibility with Dr. Gray Anderson. He's been involved at an even higher level than I have, so he's got an interesting perspective at this as well, so he can certainly add to that. He'll have that opportunity once I finish up. But to start this conversation, I wanted to share with you a book that I read recently. It's called Leading Change, and you might recognize this book. It's a really, really popular book. But what it does is it describes an 8-stage process for change initiatives. And I wanted to make this somewhat interactive, so what I thought we would do is compare what we have done with wild hogs, because it is a change initiative, and kind of see how well we've done. So what we'll do is I'm going to share with you our successes and what we've accomplished, and then at the end we're going to run through these 8 stages really fast and then see how well we've done based on his advice, which is considered the best advice out there when it comes to large change initiatives. But in order to do that, because some of us aren't as familiar with the past as it relates to wild hogs as others, then we should talk about the history just a moment. But you probably know that originally there were no hogs in our state. So we were blessed to not have wild hogs at one time, but unfortunately that's not the case now. But beginning in about 1950, we had 2 initial populations of hogs that established, and hunting was allowed in those areas, but it was only allowed in those areas. But unfortunately, if you watch the map, over the 50-year span, they continued to grow. And along with that, there were a few isolated occurrences of hogs in other areas of the state. But the majority of what we had was what you see. Now, this is a problem because as these populations expanded, the damage became more prevalent, and I'm sure you're aware at how destructive these animals are, but in case you're not, some of the biggest issues related to these hogs are the crop damage and erosion that they cause, and the disease potential or the potential for them to spread disease to livestock and to wildlife. So those are some of the biggest concerns, and obviously as these populations expanded, that became more prevalent. So we decided that we should do something about this, and at the time, back in 1999, we felt the right thing to do was to establish a statewide season, or in other words, increased hunting opportunities to control these hogs. And watch the map close. And after 10 years of having that statewide hog hunting opportunity, the populations exploded and resulted in a shotgun distribution of hogs. So obviously that didn't work. That did not work like we hoped it would, and it actually backfired, for lack of better words. But Tennessee's history proves that wild hogs cannot be controlled by hunting, and many other states, unfortunately, have had similar results. So because of that, we changed management roughly 3 to 4 years ago. And I'm glad to report now that TWRA and this commission is now leading transformational change across the country and internationally in some cases. And this has not come without sacrifice. And I want to acknowledge the commission's efforts and the agency leaders and then all the field staff that were involved in this effort and still are. And I am very thankful for them for being courageous and taking this battle on. And I'm glad to report that the skepticism of this program has lessened significantly. Now, the way this program works now is we have 3 focus areas, or 3 tenets to our management. The first is to eliminate incentives for wild hogs to be illegally stocked, because we saw that problem from the past. And then we want to create effective means of control for landowners. We want to give landowners the tools they need to eliminate these problem animals. And then finally, the third tenet is outreach, and that is just to help the public understand why this is such an important issue and understand our approach in addressing it. and also helping people realize that we are following a model that has been successful in states with small populations, and that it's the only model that's been successful in controlling wild hogs, and that is the Kansas model. So Tennessee, or TWRA, is leading transformational change nationally. And I know this because many states are contacting Gray and I on a regular basis and looking for advice on how to develop programs in their state like we have developed. So they're modeling their programs after ours. And obviously these are the programs that everybody here has helped build. And another way that I know this is the fact that anytime I go to a conference related to wild hogs or wildlife damage, they're dying to come talk to the Tennessee representatives to learn more about this. So TWRA is leading this initiative nationally, but now in state, it's wheat. Wheat is the face of change in Tennessee, and wheat is the Wild Hog Eradication Action Team. And it is a partnership that comprises of 25 organizations. And if there's anything that I'm most proud of about this program is this cooperative effort, because as far as I know, there's not another program like this in the country where so many diverse organizations are working together on such a crucial project. Now, this partnership is focused on the 3 tenets that I just described from you, or for you from Kansas. And one of the latest projects that this group has taken on is to cooperatively fund a project at the University of Tennessee to see exactly what economic damage is occurring in our state on an annual basis from wild hogs. And you know, you have different ways of evaluating commitment from partners. And mine is if they're truly engaged, they're willing to provide funding for useful research. In this project, we are doing just that. So they are literally writing checks to support this wheat effort. So that gives me great confidence, and I'm just tickled to death to share that with you. But it's become a national model as well on its own, not just the fact of, or not just what TWRA has done. Now, check this out, because this should give you an idea of just how vast a partnership this is. And there's a lot of organizations there, so I'm going to pause for just a moment to let you scan. Now, what's so interesting to me about this slide is that chances are everybody in this room, no matter what they represent today, is involved with one of these organizations. So another way of saying that would be to say that everybody here is involved and impacted by this program. And if you'll notice, there's a great diversity in the partnership, and then there's some groups that I would refer to as heavy hitters in our state. All right, so here we go. So here's the fun part. I want to share with you how I see how I think we have done on this process. So Kotter's first advice is to establish a sense of urgency. There's no doubt that's happened. I think the hogs did that for us. There was a sense of urgency. We recognized it. The legislature recognized it. Everybody recognized it. Something had to be done. Create a guiding coalition. That's wheat. I just shared about that, so that's a definite success. Develop a vision and strategy. We've done that. The vision is to take that map that you saw explode, put it in reverse, make those populations go away. The strategy to do that is the 3 tenets that I described from Kansas. We've done this. Communicate the change vision. Now, we've done this in many ways, and this is one area where wheat is priceless, because this organization has vast outreach resources that have all been utilized to help spread the word. And if, in case that missed somebody, there's a YouTube video out there. If you look hard enough, you'll find it. So there's lots of information out there to help people understand what our vision is. Empowering employees for broad-based action. We've done this as well. Our staff are now fully resourced to do this work. They have gotten incredibly good at doing it. They are setting a standard nationally on how to control these hogs. And to give you one tangible example, A couple of nights ago, our staff dropped a trap door in Wayne County that captured 48 hogs. I can't imagine what that must have been like. But that just gives you an idea of how good they have gotten at doing this, the fact that they eliminated 48 hogs in an instant. So they've gotten very well equipped, and they are very skilled at doing this, so much so that we can now drop a trapdoor from our computer. That's how efficient we've gotten. And then generate short-term wins. We have certainly done that. Just to share a few with you, since this program started a couple of years ago, we've aided in the elimination of over 13,000 hogs. We ourselves, and when I say we, I mean the Wildlife Agency, obviously have trapped over 2,000. Eliminated or possibly eliminated wild hogs in 3 counties. We've eliminated small pockets in 11 counties, and we've decreased populations of hogs, or significantly decreased them on Catoosa WMAs and some other WMAs. And those are, those are wins that I didn't know we'd be able to accomplish this quickly. So that's very significant. Not to mention all the assistance that we've provided to landowners. So we've certainly got short-term wins, and I could go on, but I'll move us forward. And the last, or not the last one, but the 7th one is consolidate gains and produce more change. We're certainly doing this. So we consolidate all those gains that I just described for you, those short-term wins, and now produce more change. And the way I know that we're doing this is, if you'll remember last year we added the ag emergency exemption. That is an example of producing more change. And finally, anchoring new approaches in the culture. All right, so here's how you know if you've truly followed this model. And we are certainly anchoring this new approach in our culture. And the reason I know that is because, 1, the skepticism is lessened. 2, I told you about the national interest in our program. To give you an example, just a few moments ago, the director shared with me that Arkansas and Alabama have eliminated hog hunting on their WMAs, or their wildlife management areas. So that right there is a tangible result that we are anchoring this approach in the culture. So my analysis of Kotter's principles is we're right on track. And I am just so impressed that we have accomplished this, because I don't think anybody read the book. Or I don't know, maybe they did. Maybe they did read the book, but they certainly followed, you guys have followed this advice. So good job. So we're on the right track. One more reason that I know this is the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies recently did a survey of all the directors of the country, wildlife directors obviously. And in that survey, the results showed that more and more states are viewing these animals as nuisance animals and are purposely trying to eliminate them rather than help them prosper as game animals. So there's another tangible result. So everything that I've just shared with you validates TWRA's position on hogs, and I want to close with this statement. And I'm going to borrow a statement Commissioner Cannon said at an earlier commission meeting. Job well done. Job well done, because the work that is happening here by the commission and by our staff and by our partners has set a national standard that I'm very proud of. And with that, I'm going to let Gray share about one of those national programs.
Great. Hold on one second. I think we've got a couple of questions from commissioners. And if I might just quickly say, Kotter's one of my favorite thinkers. His thinking about transformational change and what it takes is excellent. So I'm going to volunteer to provide each member of the commission a copy of that book. It is awesome. And this is a great example of sort of how it sticks. He also, in later writings, he talks about the failure potentially of transformational change and kind of what goes wrong when you stop focusing on these 8 steps. And so, 1, thank you to the agency. You're very kind to, especially for the folks who preceded me on the commission, who've really been in this conversation during very challenging times for our state. thank you for giving us a pat, but to the agency, I would say thank you. And I think for us, I'm reminded of the things that trip us up in transformational change, and that's declaring victory too soon. That's one of his steps in what can get the wheels off. And so it's important to celebrate the incredible work that's happening, but I think as leaders, it's important for us to remember that there will be conversations in the future that could put this work at risk, and there will be moments where we have to lean in or not. And so I say thank you, and I won't declare victory too soon on these issues because I know it's still an evolving conversation around the country and even in our state. So I really appreciate the presentation very much.
You're welcome, and I'll reiterate that point. That, again, this is a long-term project, obviously.
Right.
And some of the advice in the book was to realize that whenever you take on an initiative this significant, that we're talking about decades. It's a project for the decades to think long-term.
That's right, and creating a sense of urgency, maintaining it is a trick sometimes. So I appreciate the reminder for kind of what the impact on the resources and other habitat and other things that we do. And that's an important reminder for us to maintain the sense of urgency that we feel to make sure that we protect the whole. So I appreciate it. Commissioner Stroud?
I was just going to ask, the original hogs, when you said, well, you didn't have them in Tennessee, how were they introduced? What kind of hogs? I mean, how did they show up originally?
Those two original sources that I was referring to, if you go back and research those populations, you'll see that they established from either free-range farming practices, where the hogs eventually fertilized or became wild, and then in the case of the South Cherokee and that eastern population, that was escapes from a hunting preserve that was in North Carolina, and those were bona fide wild boar, you could say.
I'll be down.
So you had a mix of hogs there initially, but that's how they originated.
Got a year? What
Year?
Yeah, when did it happen?
You could in 1950.
In 50?
Yeah. Not in 50, but in that era.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Jamie.
Sir. Commissioner Ripley?
Chuck, thank you. One of the things that, and I just turned my light on, I'm not supposed to do that, but one of the things that's always seemed counterintuitive to me about this process is that for 10 years, as your slides showed us, we hunted hogs, and yet the numbers increased. That just seems to me counterintuitive. We have people out there actively trying to hunt them and kill them, and yet the numbers are increasing. So what is the mechanism by which that increase in numbers occurred during that period? What explains that?
There are a couple of reasons why that happened, but primarily what resulted in the shotgun distribution, and hopefully you follow what I mean by that, how you wind up with a population way over here when they were originally just over here, is somebody put them there. Somebody moved them. And unfortunately, what happens is when you create these hunting opportunities, it creates an incentive for people to move hogs into new areas for hunting opportunities. So that's how that occurs. But it's not the only challenge. Another challenge is the reproductive potential of these hogs. They reproduce so well that when they get to an area, they establish very quickly, and their populations are going to grow and grow outwardly. So that's the other challenge. And then, not to mention lack of predators. It goes on and on. They're a difficult animal.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cannon, then Commissioner McMillan.
We gotta keep saying what we said a while back. Y'all have done a phenomenal job. And when people stood up here who were pro-hunting and say we don't see the hogs anymore, I think there's a number of commissioners looking at each other, excuse me, and saying, okay, it's working. You intrigued me on Alabama and Arkansas, not allowing hunting on their WMAs. Awkward question, and it's kind of nitty, but is that hunting period? Is that hunting with dogs? Do we know? I'm just curious as to what they've implemented on their WMAs, John. That was encouraging to me.
Yeah, and my understanding is that those two cases that they have eliminated hog hunting on their WMAs. So I'm not sure if I threw the word hog in there, but that's the change. There was one
Hunting period.
No, hog hunting. Yeah, hog hunting period.
Right.
Yeah, and again, the intent is they're trying to keep their WMAs from becoming targets for for stocking.
Right.
So they're trying to prevent stocking from occurring on their WMAs.
Because I think the commission, and particularly Region 3, went the extra mile to have that brief session at Catoosa with dogs, so this is interesting. The second part is, in the midst of the acknowledging short-term and huge short-term gains, you talked about the vision. What is the term of that vision? When you'll be revisiting the vision and what the next step is? What does your gut tell you? Are we a few years away? That may be an unfair question.
I don't think there's an unfair question. I don't even think there's a potential for that, because I believe in transparency. But again, this is a long-term project, and the way I see it is that, you know, as I probably stated, our focus is on those small pockets and to eliminate those over time. And I think that after 10 years, and we're through 3 to 4, I'm losing track, is that after that amount of time, we should be able to see the elimination of those small pockets, a large amount, because we're already seeing good success with that. So I think that will, when that time comes, we'll be very proud of what's been accomplished with the strategy of eliminating those small pockets.
Commissioner McMillan's going to pass. Are there any other questions? And Commissioner McMillan, feel free to, you can take it back.
I just bite my lip here. I'm gonna say a little something. I can't keep my mouth shut, but I'm very impressed with the results we've got. I hope that other states that follow us probably take a little bit different path, and that they get the cultural part in as far as educating the public on why we're doing it first. I thought that when we did it, that it caused, I just thought that the pattern we took, I thought we went into it a little quick without culturally, like I said, educate, and I think it came at a big cost to this commission. And I guess I'm still bitter about that, but I think that that it had to be done, and we're being very successful with it. But I do hope that in the future that we learn as an agency and as a commission that we've got to do our homework first about what the effect's going to be to the reputation of the commission and to this and to the agency. But I'm very proud of the struggles we went through and what we're accomplishing now. But it was a rough time, and I think that I hope we learn from that too. And I think that's what in any process and any commission and the agency we need to learn from how we handle things. And I think it was a lot stickier issue than we anticipated. But I think that, like I said, we did what we needed to do. I just hope that we've learned for in the future that when we tackle something like that we get some of the stuff that I was looking at toward the end maybe should be going toward the first, is what I'm saying. So I hope that I didn't overstate my bounds, but I'm very proud of what we've accomplished, and I think y'all have done a great job. But I'm still disappointed in what it cost the commission at that time.
And Commissioner McMillan, I think that's why I think everybody will really benefit from reading that book, because, well, it's hogs today. There will be 10 other issues that are going to be important that we are going to have to think about. How we communicate transparently, how we bring diverse folks that we all serve together to come to a common vision. And it's just a really helpful series of ways to learn the easy way. And so I hear you loud and clear. Commissioner Cox?
Thank you. When Doc was talking about that, Chris Richardson, we've got lots of legislators that were involved in this from the beginning, and the customer relations part of it, and the disputes and all. Are the successes that he's talked about, have you discussed that with these legislators, or if you hadn't, could you give them an update on what's going on, Representative Lawler and some of the guys in the other affected areas, and what the successes are? Have you done that or plan to, or?
The short answer is yes. Anytime somebody wants to talk about hogs, which is often within the legislature, I do the best I can to convey the success stories that we've had. I can also tell you that the wheat group, which is the Wild Hog Eradication Team, a 22-member organization, has been instrumental in getting that message across. And we've got a meeting, Chuck's working on planning a meeting this year down in the Legislative Plaza in one of the committee rooms, a meeting of the wheat group where we're going to talk about that very thing, the success stories that the program's had, where we've come, and hopefully we can get some legislative attendance at that to drive that message home.
And if you leave them with a takeaway, use those state maps. I think it is a very simple visual, something to take home to remember what you're trying to talk about in that meeting. I think that'll be very helpful to them. Any other questions, members? Okay, Chuck.
Thank you.
More. And Chairman, we're going to hustle up. I know we've got more business than just this committee today.
I'm going to apologize from the get-go because I'm not going to be nearly as polished as Chuck. And so I haven't seen this presentation since we put it together a while ago. But the first thing I want to address is Commissioner McMillan's question about communications. And so we as a wildlife division and in our planning efforts, if you look back at our 2010 discussions that we were going through, we had the 3 tenets that Chuck discussed, with outreach being number one, that we have to lead with outreach first. The commission that was going through that, you know, with that legislative pressure at that time, thrust us in a position of not having outreach first. And so, but I say that simply so the commission understands that we understand the need of outreach. And what I'm going to be talking about from this national, international effort, we are strongly pushing outreach first, that we can't go into this and surprise people as a lot of the citizens of the state of Tennessee felt when we went through this in 2011. But outreach is a huge component of the future of wild hog management. And if we're not telling people what we're doing and why we're doing it, then we're going to miss the boat. What I'm going to be discussing is, what was it, a year and a half ago? So the federal cycle, USDA Wildlife Services, which is our a lot of animal damage control that kind of goes on behind the scenes. One of our key partners in this effort basically got some congressional support to the equivalent of $20 million and some new national initiatives at wild hog control. And so they were asked to pull together a national feral swine damage management program, as they call it. And the great thing, the money that hit the ground began in 2014. We are currently in year 2. Sorry, let me go back here. There we go. That's what I'm looking at. So we're in our second budget cycle. The great thing about this program is I met last spring with the assistant director of this program out of DC, and he very quickly told me that their national plan is based on what we've done here in the state of Tennessee. And that's looking at removing hunting, going after the tiered system exactly as we've done, and as Chuck told you, going after those pockets first with the understanding that you can't get at those core populations, the Floridas, the Californias, the Texas. They're going to have to be on the back burner, but we're going to fast track states like New York and Ohio and Arizona and New Mexico that have these populations, and that we really believe that we can knock these populations out in a very short amount of time. And very short in this world means about 7 years. But we believe in this level, and I do apologize because I may circle back around to it in the presentation, but there are currently about 41 states in the United States that have hogs. They believe that we can get 12 or 13 of these states can have hogs removed from the state in the next 7 years. And that to me is incredible. And it also, like I said, follows very clearly what we're trying to do with trying to remove some of those West Tennessee counties from this problem. The other great part is in this effort, they're running their plan through APHIS, the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, and they've asked 2 states to represent, and they've asked Virginia, who chairs the disease committee for that organization, and they asked Tennessee to serve on that committee at this national level. And so there's 6 people that serve on this committee, and Tennessee's been offered a chair at that table to provide guidance to this steering committee. We're looking at about $20 million statewide, and like I said, they have a tiered system. Tennessee is in a tier 3, and so we're right on the cusp between tier 1 or tier 2 and tier 3. The tier 1 states, like I said, are the states that they think they can knock them out pretty quickly. Lots of effort in the Southwest and in the West, where some of these states hogs have recently been dropped out. Utah, New Mexico, they're putting some efforts in there that they think they can get hogs removed out of those states in the next couple of years. And so, but that of the 20 million, about 400,000 of those dollars is coming to Tennessee. And the great part of that, and I'll touch on the helicopter hub in a minute. The great part of that is it brings a side-by-side partner. We've had a lot of people that have been behind us and given us some thumbs up and saying, yeah, that's great. And as Chuck talked about, it's great to have partners that bring money to the table. So our wheat group has brought, their money to the table. But this $400,000 now is another person, another partner in the state of Tennessee that somebody can give a phone call. They're handing their phone number out to any landowner in the state. And they'll come visit. And the old model, the way Wildlife Services works, is they work under contract. So they'll come visit any landowner, but they don't have the federal funding to then do that work for free. So they have to contract with them, and so that landowner would have to pay them. What this new money does is give them the ability for boots on the ground for somebody with Wildlife Services experience, geared up, knowledge of trapping, knowledge of controlling hogs, out there on the ground. So it's not just TWRA on the ground killing hogs right now, controlling hogs. We now have an active partner. The other really great part of this is Tennessee was selected as the hub for the helicopter. They have 2 helicopter hubs, one in Texas and one in Tennessee. The helicopter hub in Tennessee serves the entire eastern United States. But we're hoping, Brett, the state director for Tennessee, is hoping we might get as many as 200 hours of flight time, with helicopters over hogs, killing hogs in the state of Tennessee in this year. That's a lot of effort, especially over some of those pockets. And the joy of having this helicopter hub is, even if they're not working on Tennessee specific projects, last year we got some great help. When they were flying back from Georgia, they flew McMinn County to just check it out. When they were flying back from Louisiana, they did Lauderdale County. And so just kind of little flyovers, checking on things. And so we have that sort of, just that relationship that they can help us with. That hub gives us that extra ability to have that partner doing a great job for us. And a few extra hours in the air over our hogs never hurts. So, yeah. Oop. Let's go back. And so this partner, this national, what I think this partner, as far as the national goes, it is bringing an incredible amount of focus, laser focus on wild hogs and wild hog management. And as Chuck was giving this commission, the director and all of our regional staff that have been doing really the heavy lifting and the hard work of this and all of the pressure, but it's paying off. People are really taking note of what happened here in Tennessee. We're using it as case studies. We present as often as we possibly can to show the disruption that it did to our commission and the pain that it takes. But hopefully these people can learn from some of the things that didn't go perfectly, but also from some of our successes. But everybody right now is looking at the state of Tennessee. And this is a national and international effort. And so we've got hogs leaking over into Canada, and so that are being handled under this. They're falling out, out of Texas into Mexico. So this issue is being looked at very broadly, and every bit of it is being based on what we've done in the state of Tennessee. And to me, that brings a huge amount of validity and to what we've done. If we've got an entire North American continent focused on a management plan that came out of this room, that tells us, I think, we're on the right track. And I applaud everybody that was involved in that. And I think it's terribly important to make sure that message gets carried forward, that people understand that message, that the world is looking at what Tennessee has done. Yeah, and so we've already touched on this. And so as far as the altered the landscape, I think the interesting part is that states And there's some bit of altruism, I think, in what we need to be doing right now from a state agency and from a federal agency perspective. And I say that as in, people need to see what Tennessee's done, the value of this non-hunting, why we don't want to hunt. But we're starting to see states respond to that. New York, a few months ago, chose to deal with wild hogs, but they chose to deal with wild hogs in a control mechanism without hunting. They very clearly came out and said, we're not going to hunt these wild hogs. And to me, that's the value of what Tennessee's done, and that's the value of what this national effort is doing, is showing people that if you're going to get into the wild hog control program, if you're going to get into this game, don't go down traditional hunting mechanisms. It will fail. Every state is saying that now. As Chuck alluded to, we did a survey. Every state recognizes the failure of hunting. Every state now recognizes that. And the new states that are just having these pockets are going to a control effort, not to a hunt effort. And that's changing the landscape. That's a big difference in what's going on right now. And the final is just another great thank you for the, I'm glad Commissioner Brown is here, because I know we went through some tough times. And so during his, while he was here and the other commissioners that were here, but the resiliency of this commission and this agency to persevere through all of that is providing fundamental change in how hog management is happening on the national level, and is bringing $20 million right now to the nation, and $400,000 additional dollars and 200 hours of helicopter time to the state of Tennessee to continue to help with this effort. And with that, I will end my ramblings and take any questions on this program.
Thanks, Dr. Anderson. Other questions?
I do have a question.
Commissioner King?
I was interested in the helicopter. That's the first I'd heard of that. Now, did you say, is that for observation, or is there actually hunting or shooting out of the?
Shoot, a little of both. And so what of the projects that are going on in Tennessee, they're going to be doing some monitoring out of the helicopter, but primarily it is control. And so,
That sounds interesting, I'm just saying.
well, it's incredibly effective, and so it's incredibly expensive, but the joy of them having the helicopter here, it's becoming more, it's becoming cheaper. When we first got into this game, they flew, and we're doing some proof of concept for flying a helicopter east of the Mississippi River. And at that point, it was $1,200 an hour, but we were killing, I think it was about 35 hogs per hour were being taken out during that. So the cost per trapping, it became pretty effective still. Now we're down into the $200 per hour.
But you're not taking people that are paying to go shoot hogs?
No, absolutely not.
Because I know in Texas they do that, right?
Right. And we don't want anything, we're trying to take all of that out. And so this is highly trained wildlife services personnel, federal personnel, flying treetops with buckshot and killing as many hogs as they can. And it's only, make sure everybody understands, it's only on properties that landowners have said yes. So we have to go out, and our regional staff is working heavily with wildlife services to line up big tracts of landowners that we can fly. They go out, sign the paperwork, and say, yes, you can fly over my property, and then they'll set up a date and go do that.
I almost think we need to have the commissioners might need to
I was thinking that, don't you?
go observe this or see if we can help out with this hog control population.
Kinda thinking that myself.
I like that motion.
I second.
Their helicopter's actually down right now, isn't it?
What was that?
Helicopter's actually down right now, isn't it?
I haven't heard, and so.
Talked to one of the USDA guys the other day, and they said that they were rebuilding the engine on it, but they were gonna have 2 in the state of Tennessee within the next 6 weeks or something like that.
They're gonna have new, the one that they initially got, they're getting they're getting a pretty good deal. They're getting border patrol surplus helicopters, rebuilding the engines for $400,000, and they're getting a $1.5 million helicopter for $400,000. So it's essentially everything's being rebuilt. And I know they're getting a new one. I don't know where that one stands. And so, but I know, like any aircraft, there's tons of maintenance, so they can only fly X number of hours before it has to go somewhere and sit down and get maintained.
I asked him to take us up too, and he said the same thing you did.
They're not, you would think they'd be more friendly with partners, but they have all those restrictions.
Commissioner Teague?
Could you repeat the federal dollars that are coming in since these changes? I know you said it, but just.
There's $20 million nationally. And about 11 million of those dollars are hitting states. And Tennessee's getting about 400,000 of those. The steering committee that I sit on directs those dollars, all 20 million of those dollars. And so we're in a pretty nice little place to argue Tennessee and the commission, that whole Wildlife Services as a whole. This steering committee is very understanding of the needs of Tennessee. And so we successfully argued quite a few extra dollars out of that. But we should see that number increase in time, because the good part is as the first tier, as we start getting rid of New Mexico and Utah, as soon as those states fall off, the same $20 million is still there. Now Tennessee should start getting more of that. And so as the population contracts on a national level, we should start to see our priorities rise, and our priorities, then the funding for those priorities rise as well. So I think we're in a good place.
Would you think that these dollars are probably contingent on us not expanding hunting opportunities and staying in the model we have?
Yes, absolutely. The survey that we sent out, what the steering committee is basing it on is like I said, the Tennessee model. And what we sent out to the directors was basically a survey asking about administrative readiness. And that administrative readiness gets at what are you doing for control? And for states that are currently hunting, and you're not going to get a lot of control effort if you're actively promoting sport hunting, because those are in direct conflict, obviously. And but administrative readiness dealt with what do your regulations look like from a control perspective? Do you have, as Chuck talked about, do you have a multi-organization leadership group? Because the Wildlife Services folks recognized that no state agency can do this alone. It has to be a cooperative effort. I can't remember what the last one was, but all of these things are predicated. States' entry and success in getting these grant dollars is all predicated on the fact that they're doing what we've done in the state of Tennessee, and that we are in a control method, not in anything that at all supports the idea that we have a desire to have one more hog on the ground.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cox.
Is the balance of the money for, I guess, for federal lands?
A lot of administration, and so it's the first project that Wildlife Services can think about, because Wildlife Services is one component of a huge USDA effort, and so there's a disease effort. A lot of this is being driven by the disease concerns. So they're collecting, I can't remember how many thousands of disease samples every year to make sure for disease monitoring, watching how those diseases jump, getting at some genetic type projects. So if we get a hog in West Tennessee, we can DNA type it and know if it is from hogs in that area, or did it come out of Georgia or Texas or those types of things. So we can start to little more ability to understand how those hogs are being moved illegally around the country. And so there's that component. And to think about, there's a lot of other just background research needs and other management needs that support the big picture of wild hog management at this level.
Thank you. While I'm, giving the Wildlife Commission credit is a humble thing, but they went through something. That was the year before I got here, but I think I'm very proud of what you guys have done, and you leading the country in this, and it was a tough deal, but it's y'all are doing a great job on this deal.
Chairman,
Yes, sir, Commissioner
I want to
Stroud.
follow up on what Bill said. He and I have talked about this. Every year I'm real lucky to go to New Mexico and elk hunt at the Jicarilla Apache Indian Reservation. It's about 500,000 acres. And last year I went, and I've been going there for like 13 years. Well, in the last 5, 6, 7 years, all of a sudden hogs showed up. And it became a real problem with the reservation and with those people. So last year, I'll be quick. Last year I was there, and we were hunting, and the federal game people were there, and they were teaching them the Tennessee system. That's what we were told. So it definitely is hats off to you. I'm just saying, I heard it as far as out there, and they're using the the cages and that process that they do. And I actually saw it because they were setting all this stuff up and teaching them what to do. And it came from you guys, from us. Thank you.
Any other questions? Great, thank
Okay.
you very much.
All right, thank you.
Director Carter?
Just 2 points real quickly. One being back to the APHIS control. That's a group from the U.S. Department of Agriculture that we utilize in a number of programs. And I just don't want to leave any impression that the agency's paying $1,500, $2,000 an hour for helicopter time. That it's a very expensive thing to do, and that's what the money from the U.S. government is going to that division of the USDA folks to fund those things. And that money that's coming into Tennessee helps offset that. The money that we have in a contract with them is a number of things that deal with federal species, everything from geese to buzzards to even turkey damage in some place. So we utilize them in a different way. So the money that we contract with them goes for a bunch of different things. The big dollar amounts are coming from the federal government. Second point is that the hog hunting, we talked about hog hunting. It's a cultural thing. It's traditional in Tennessee and has been for years and years. I think it would be remiss if we didn't at least acknowledge where we are in that. If you're a person and that was your primary interest and you hunted hogs from the time you came up and your granddaddies hunted hogs and all those kind of things, that's a tradition that we didn't take lightly, and we still don't. And even though we recognize that in those areas where hogs have not been well established, so forth, we're really pressing hard to try to get the hogs out of there. In those areas where the big populations are, traditionally have been there, we have looked at the hunting opportunity in conjunction with something else. So in the case like of a bear hunt or something would be incidental, so that a person that's had that cultural background and still wants to do that, we're trying to accommodate that the best we can, but doing it in a very controlled environment to try to take down any incentive that there would be to have those populations expand. So just wanted to acknowledge that we don't take lightly that culture, we don't take lightly that history, and that we're looking into that to try to make sure that that blends into the overall program to someday where we hope to control all populations, but where we can in a very controlled way, we're still trying to look at that.
That's it, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Apologies.
You don't want to go, do you? You're not ready to go,
I
right?
know, give me a note. I've got a PowerPoint that's about 40 slides long. You don't mind if I go through it real
No,
quick?
well, let's take a break first. Let's take a little break. We will start back at 10:30. Take a
Thank you,
break.
Mr. Chairman.
John Gregory.